Sure, I grew up without much money and lived a poor life, but now, Emily has become a valuable employee who supports our company. She's not at all the person Mr. Brown thinks she is. Could you please reconsider? Saying this, I made my request to the couple. Then, I heard a chuckling laugh from the couple sitting ahead. Surprised, I looked up to find them glaring down at us with disdain.
Poor orphans should just go home.
Why would he smirk in such a situation? Seeing the cold, scornful look in the couple's eyes, I realized I had been looked at with the same eyes in my teens. Those who look at me like this hardly ever take me seriously, no matter what I say. Remembering such past experiences, I began to regain my composure. Understood. Excuse us. As I said that, I left the Brown residence with Emily. The next day, I worked alone in the office earlier than usual. I had trouble falling asleep the previous night and woke up earlier than usual that day. As I worked, I couldn't forget about the previous day's incident and turned on the office TV to distract myself. Then, employee bullying suspected at Chase Bank flashed on the TV screen. Surprised, I was glued to the news for a while before calling Emily.
Bro, good morning. What's up so early?
Can you turn on the TV? Chase Bank is being covered for a bullying issue. My name is John Smith. At 36, I manage a small construction company in a local area, leading a busy life every day. 3 years ago, the former president fell, and I took over as president. It might seem like a successful life to some, considering I became president at a young age. However, my life has been anything but easy. I have no memories of being loved by my parents or of sharing a proper meal with them. My parents were never steadily employed, drank from the daytime, and were quick to fight. Living under such parents, I couldn't have a proper student life and had to start working as soon as compulsory education ended. One day, exhausted from the unfamiliar work, my mother returned home after a long absence. Beside her was a small girl I didn't recognize. Ignoring my pondering, my mother coldly said,
"This is your sister from today. Take care of your sister, Emily."
Emily was just 3 years old at the time. My mother seemed to have grown tired of her constant crying and left her with me. From that day on, I worked during the day and took care of my sister. When we really couldn't afford it, I even took Emily to work with me. But a previous president and everyone at work were kind and took care of Emily. I loved this company, which I took over as president 3 years ago, bringing us to where we are today. Today, too, started early. I arrived at the office earlier than anyone, opened my laptop, and began reviewing construction site reports. After a while, I heard the office door open. "Emily, you're early today."
You too, bro. You're always working hard from early in the morning. Can I help with anything?
Looking towards the door, Emily entered the office with sleepy eyes. Since taking over as president 3 years ago, Emily has been working as an accounting clerk in this company. "No, I'm just checking reports. But are you getting enough rest lately?"
I'm as healthy as you see. Let me know if there's anything I can help with. Oh, and I have something I want to discuss with you. Do you have time today?
Well, I have no meetings today, so I'm free during lunch break.
Thanks. Then let's go to the diner nearby for lunch.
After finishing our conversation, Emily disappeared into the break room. Emily and I sold our family home a few years ago and now live alone in an apartment near the company. We considered living together, but Emily wanted to be independent and started living alone. After finishing my conversation with Emily, I returned my focus to the reports. Soon, other employees arrived, and another day at the office began. And just like that, the hectic morning work came to an end, and before I knew it, it was lunch break. Emily and I headed to the diner we had promised to meet at. As we entered and took our seats, I immediately addressed her. "Emily, why the sudden talk? What's going on?"
Well, actually, I've been seeing someone recently.
"Really? Someone I know?" I was taken aback by her words and couldn't help but interrupt with a question.
You probably don't know him. I go to the bank often for my accounting job, right? I got to know someone working there.
Chase Bank, right.
Yeah, we met a few times through work, and somehow we just got closer.
Chase Bank is a local bank operating in this area. It's a familiar institution for us since we use it for employee salaries and deposits.
And the person I'm seeing is Mr. Brown's son.
I was surprised by her revelation. I knew that Chase Bank's presidency was passed down through blood relatives. That the bank's president's son was Emily's partner. His son, you say? I'm honestly shocked to think he's the son of the bank president. So, what did you want to talk about? Emily began to speak, looking somewhat troubled as she looked down.
His name is Michael, and I happened to be there when his father came to the bank the other day.
And
I happened to overhear a conversation by chance. He was reprimanding an employee quite harshly.
well, it's not good to scold someone in front of customers, but it's understandable to give subordinates a talking to about work.
But it was more like he was belittling their education. I heard Mr. Brown saying, "Don't talk back to me when you're not even from a well-known university."
That's awful. I've gotten angry at my employees or partners for making mistakes or being rude. But it's always about their actions, not their education. Judging someone based on their education is not acceptable.
Michael was there too, and he said, "My father has always valued education and career history. I want to continue seeing him, but I'm a bit scared of dealing with his father."
Emily confessed with a sad look. Emily and I don't boast of impressive educational backgrounds, but we've never felt inferior because of it. Emily, through self-study, has become competent in accounting, proving that a person's worth can't be measured by education alone. Emily, you have no reason to feel inferior about your life. If you ever have to deal with President Brown, I'm sure he'll come to understand and appreciate your character.
"Thanks, I hope so,"
she replied, and we left the diner. Emily continued her relationship with Michael, occasionally updating me about their situation. 2 months after our discussion, Emily arranged for me to meet Michael, her boyfriend, in person. After work, I headed to the restaurant where they were waiting. She had never introduced me to her boyfriends before, so this meeting signified her serious intentions with Michael. Feeling a bit nervous, I entered the restaurant. After telling the staff our reservation name, I was guided to our table.
"Hey, brother, thanks for making time today. Let me introduce you again. This is Michael Brown, my boyfriend."
She said that a bit shyly.
Pleasure to meet you, John. I've always heard about you from Emily. Thank you for coming today.
Michael greeted me with a kind expression as he sat next to her. Nice to meet you. I've heard a lot about you from Emily as well. Thank you for setting up this meeting. Michael, dressed in a neatly tailored suit, looked very presentable. But his smile revealed a youthful friendliness. As we exchanged greetings, the conversation flowed smoothly. Over the course of the meal, we talked about how they met, Michael's job, and before we knew it, an hour had passed. The conversation naturally shifted to my company.
John, it's amazing. Being so young and already a company president is really impressive. I respect that.
That's not true. And Michael, you're going to take over your dad's position as president in the future, right?
That's the plan, but I still lack the knowledge and experience, so it's going to take some time.
Michael said that, continuing with a somewhat troubled expression.
Also, lately, my father has been making dismissive comments towards employees. It seems to be causing some frustration in my department.
I've heard a bit about that from Emily before. Is he the type to care about educational background and social standing?
Yes, he has always been like that. But I believe that you can judge a person solely on their past education or social status.
Hearing this, I felt a bit relieved. It was clear that Michael could see the true essence and character of people.
Emily has also told me about your past. I was indeed surprised at first, but that alone would not make me dislike Emily. I want to continue being with her.
I'm glad to hear you say that. Our conversation went on, and it was clear that they were in a relationship with a serious view of the future. Michael would surely make her happy. However, from what I've heard from Michael, his father seems to be quite concerned about appearances. While I support their future together, I doubt he would be pleased to hear about our past. Hearing their happy news brought relief, yet thinking about the future, I couldn't help feeling a bit anxious. With these mixed feelings, we finished our meal and headed home. A year has passed since meeting Michael, and a new fiscal year has begun. In October, our company expanded, adding 20 new employees. And we've taken on contracts for major construction projects exceeding $200 million. The company's performance and reputation have started to grow, allowing us to undertake various constructions. My workload has increased, leading to busier days. Emily and Michael continued their relationship, and over the past year, I've had several opportunities to dine with them. Today, after meetings with clients and site inspections, I returned to the office around 7 p.m., not expecting anyone to still be there. As I opened the office door, I was greeted with,
Welcome back, brother. You were checking sites today, right? Good job.
Emily, you're still here. You should head home and rest soon. Emily was beside her computer, surrounded by a calculator and piles of receipts, apparently working on something.
Actually, I have something to report to you.
What's up?
Well, last night, Michael and I went out for dinner, and he proposed to me on the way home.
Hearing this, I nearly spit out my tea in surprise. Really? That's great, Emily.
Thanks, brother. So, we talked about our future after he proposed, and we're thinking of visiting Michael's parents soon to greet them. Would you come with us?
Of course, that's fine. But have you talked to his parents before? As I asked, she looked a bit gloomy.
That's the thing, I haven't met them in person yet. I wonder if they'll approve.
It'll be okay. If you express your feelings clearly, I'm sure his parents will understand.
Thanks, as always. I feel like you're always saving me.
Well, I am your brother, after all. It's only natural.
Then, as a way of thanking you, I'll work even harder to support your company from now on.
With that, our conversation ended. A month has passed since then, and the day we were to greet Emily's future in-laws came. I was nervous from the morning, fidgeting as I got ready. Then, the doorbell rang. It was Emily coming to pick me up.
Morning, brother. Are you ready?
Yeah, all set. Let's go. Then, we drove to Michael's family home, the Brown residence. The Brown residence boasts the largest property in this neighborhood, a true mansion by any standard. Emily rang the doorbell with a nervous expression. Michael's father emerged from inside and led us to the living room. Michael was already waiting, which eased our tension slightly upon seeing a familiar face.
Thank you for coming today. My father will join us shortly. Please, have a seat.
At his invitation, we sat down on a large sofa. Emily seemed even more nervous sitting next to me. A few minutes later, the living room doors opened, and Michael's parents came in together. Emily and I greeted them, handing over a gift bag as a token of our visit.
I appreciate you coming all this way. Michael has told me about you. You must be Emily, and standing beside you must be your brother, John.
His father greeted us warmly. Contrary to our expectations of a cold reception.
Yes, it's nice to meet you. I'm Emily and I'm dating Michael. Thank you for taking the time to meet with us today.
Emily responded, seemingly sharing my surprise at their kindness. Following our greetings, Emily and Michael formally asked for their blessing to marry, which they gladly gave.
Have you already greeted both your parents? We'd like to hold a formal engagement ceremony before the registration, depending on the timing. How is that coming along?
Michael's father inquired, causing Emily and I to exchange looks. His inquiry revelated that Michael hadn't mentioned our estrangement from our parents. Seeing our troubled faces, Michael explained on our behalf.
Dad, I haven't mentioned this, but it seems Emily and John are estranged from their parents, who disappeared when they were young.
His father, surprised, interjected.
So, you two don't have parents. How did you grow up without them?
Just as I was about to speak up, Emily, sitting beside me, confidently responded to them.
Our parents left us before I could even remember. Since then, my brother, who was still a teenager, worked to raise me.
The couple looked at us with astonishment.
We agreed to this marriage because we heard she was the sister of a construction company president. To think we've drawn such a short straw, I'm sorry, but we cannot approve of this marriage. Michael must marry someone more elite and well-educated.
Angered by his remarks, I couldn't help but retort. Indeed, we grew up being poor, but Emily is now a valuable employee who supports our company. She's not at all the person you think she is. Please reconsider. I beg you. Saying this, I made my request to the couple. However, from the couple seated in front of us, a chuckle was heard. Surprised, I looked up to find them glaring down at us.
Poor orphans should just go home.
Why would he smirk in such a situation? Seeing their cold, disdainful eyes, I realized I had been looked at with the same eyes in my teens. Those who look at me this way rarely take me seriously. Remembering past experiences, I began to regain my composure. Understood. We'll take our leave. I said that as I took Emily and left the Brown residence. Emily followed silently behind me. Then, I drove her home. Unable to properly respond to her soft thank you and I'm sorry due to my anger. The next day, I was at the office early. Unable to sleep well and waking up earlier than usual. While working, I couldn't shake off the incident and turned on the TV for a distraction. To my surprise, the screen displayed employee bullying suspected at Chase Bank. I immediately called Emily.
Good morning, brother. What's up so early?
Can you turn on the TV? Chase Bank is being covered for a bullying issue. As she turned on her TV at home, sounds came through.
That's a Chase Bank employee, right? I've seen them a few times.
It seems an employee exposed President Brown's bullying to the media. The TV broadcasted recorded conversations between President Brown and an employee, along with interviews from other employees. After watching the news, Emily came straight to the office.
I can't believe he was involved in something like this. If it's gotten this much attention, the bank itself might be in jeopardy.
Yale, banks operate on trust. With the company's top brass acting like this, it'd make anyone nervous to keep their deposits there. As we talked, employees began arriving for work, all abuzz about the Chase Bank scandal. Several came to me, wanting to close their accounts, worried about potential repercussions on the companies and their personal deposits. After discussing it with Emily, we decided to close all company and employee accounts with the bank. Emily promptly started the cancellation process. After closing our accounts and working on opening new ones, a call came into the office.
Boss, a man claiming to be President Brown is calling for you.
Okay, I'll take it. I responded, and Brown's yelling voice came through immediately.
Is it true you've canceled all your accounts at once?
Yes. After seeing the news about the bullying issues, we thought it best to cancel given the uncertain future of the bank.
That bullying scandal is just some stupid employees stirring up trouble. It'll blow over soon. But canceling 5,500 accounts at once could endanger our bank's existence.
Closing an account is ultimately a personal choice. Our employees expressed a desire to close their accounts, and after discussion, we proceeded with the cancellations. I replied calmly, despite his furious tone. However, he seemed even more upset by my words, raising his voice further.
Are you kidding me? Is this some kind of revenge for yesterday? Is that it?
We didn't cancel our accounts as revenge for yesterday. Although I was truly angered by your words towards Emily, that has nothing to do with the account cancellation.
Losing so many accounts now puts our company in trouble. Can't you reconsider? I'll make it worth your while.
When I firmly declined, he softened his tone, almost pleading. He even mentioned something unbelievable. It sounded almost like a bribe. President Brown, born into wealth as the son of a bank president, seemed to believe everything could be solved with money. No, thank you. We decline. Perhaps instead, you should address the bullying issues you've caused in the past.
Huh? That's just weak people complaining. A little money to the press, and it's all settled. That's why I need more money now.
I was utterly dismayed by his corrupt mindset. The world isn't as simple as you think. Is there anything else? If not, I'll be hanging up. After ending the call, the scandal continued to unfold, with media coverage intensifying daily. I was busy with setting up a new bank account and ensuring payroll went smoothly. Emily has also been busy updating accounting books due to overtime. We were swamped with work, often staying late to finish. Then, one late evening, the office intercom rang.
Who could that be at this hour?
Emily wondered. She opened the door only to find a disheveled President Brown standing there. President Brown, what brings you here? Despite her greeting, he walked straight to me.
John, I'd like you to cancel the account closure. I've brought a reward today. Wouldn't this convince you?
He said that as he presented a thick envelope presumably filled with cash. I had clearly refused during our previous call. But he, it seems, could not accept that, insisting on a deal so selfishly. President Brown, as I've said before, we're not reconsidering. We're busy setting up new accounts, so please, if there's nothing else, we ask you to leave.
Even with this much money on the table, you won't reconsider. Then, I'll approve the marriage. How about that?
The engagement is completely unrelated. If Emily and Michael truly want to marry, they don't need your permission to do so.
Why won't you agree even though I'm pleading like this?
Frustrated, he bit his lip, glaring at me. It seems you've often solved problems with money, but not everything can be resolved that way, nor can a person's true nature be measured by their education, job history, or social status. What you need to see is the essence of people.
What are you talking about? Education and status are everything. With them, you can make money and grow into an excellent individual.
I sighed, unable to agree. As I've mentioned before, Emily and I grew up without parents. As a teenager, I struggled daily to provide us with enough to eat. We had no money at all. I didn't have an impressive education or work experience, but the previous president kindly hired me. Thanks to that opportunity, I've managed to grow the company significantly over the past few years. You can't judge a person's essence by their money, education, or status alone. Then, while looking down, he muttered weakly.
Was I wrong?
Then, he picked up the envelope filled with cash and left the office. A few days later, Brown held a press conference apologizing to the media and the public, confessing that the bullying issues were indeed his fault, and vowing to work on improving and regaining the public's trust for the company. It will surely take a long time to resolve all the issues, but I hope he doesn't give up and continues to address each one. Chase Bank is a precious company that the previous president worked hard to protect. I hope they make efforts to recover, keeping the previous president's spirit in mind. Today, Emily and I stayed late at the office again. I turned on the TV during a break and saw a report about the recent apology press conference. By the way, what happened with Michael after that?
He contacted me right after we visited for the marriage proposal, apologizing on behalf of his parents' behavior and words.
And what did you reply?
I haven't replied yet. I was too overwhelmed that day, and then the news broke the next day. I've been so busy I completely missed a chance to reply.
Michael is probably still waiting for your message. He's the one you decided to marry, after all. After a moment, Emily said,
You're right. I'll contact him. It seems like the company issues are heading towards a resolution, too.
3 months later, I was at a wedding venue. It was Emily and Michael's wedding. Waiting in the family room, I felt anxious for the couple. Then, Emily, in a beautiful dress, and Michael, in a sparkling tuxedo, approached me. Congratulations to both of you. I wish you a lifetime of happiness. Then, they shared a tender smile with each other, looking my way.
While I was tidying up my desk, Director Higgins suddenly called for me. I had been thinking about resigning without saying another word, but since she summoned me, I reluctantly headed to her office. Then she dropped a bombshell.
Mr. Incompetent, take over the $15 million deal.
More than anything, I didn't want to be manipulated by her anymore. Besides, handing such a massive project to an employee who was practically fired seemed odd. Even if Director Higgins' dad is the EVP, I can't stand her making arbitrary decisions like this anymore. I reached a decision and asked her, "Can I see the documents?" Mistaking my intent, she smugly handed over the documents. Flipping through, I confirmed what I thought. My name was already in the column for the person in charge of that document. However, the date was from several months ago, before I was told I was being fired. Why did she bring up this deal now? Understanding her intentions, I spoke up firmly. "It's impossible since you've named me specifically. Since I'm being fired, I'll excuse myself. My name is Kevin Johnson. I am an employee of the company in my half of 50s. As I entered this company as a fresh graduate, I felt strange to think that more than half of my life had already passed, which made me feel like it was long or short. I worked in the sales department of a beverage manufacturer, enjoying my days as a salesperson. However, as the company expanded, the sales department was divided into sales and marketing. I was assigned to the marketing, and that's where I am now. Marketing is the department that creates mechanisms to sell products. Unlike sales, which directly handles sales contracts, marketing focuses on promoting to the market. While sales deals with current customers, marketing must understand the behavior of potential customers and devise business strategies. Initially confused by the difference, I found great satisfaction when our well-discussed and researched plans succeeded. However, no matter how much I researched the market and promoted my products, some did not sell at all, while others hit the unexpected target demographic. I gradually became fascinated by the depth of marketing. I am a senior member of the department, and although I am much older than the others, I have tried to communicate with the younger members as much as possible, and they have come to talk to me in an open and friendly manner. The open and comfortable atmosphere where everyone shares their opinions is something I greatly appreciate. Indeed, the young employees' perspectives are vital, and their quick grasp of trends through social media is impressive. Something becomes incredibly popular one moment, and then suddenly, no one talks about it anymore. Keeping up with the rapid changes and trends is a tough task at my age, but it's part of the job. An alien who's an incomprehensible enemy can become a helpful informant once they're on your side.
Kevin.
A young male employee approached me. "What's up?"
Our competitor company had a major blunder online yesterday.
"Really? What happened?" I try to keep up with the news, but I often miss smaller stories.
Seems like they messed up with their tagline.
He explained, showing me the trending post. "This? Really?
Yeah, I saw this yesterday. This is a no-go. It's outdated, not something that would trend nowadays.
As I was talking, another female employee happened to pass by and joined in our conversation. So it's a no-go. Yo, definitely a no-go. The two of them agreed, nodding. That was a close call. We were actually considering going in that direction with our project. Guess we should drop it then. I had decided to change the tagline of the project I was working on, but it was better to go through that hassle than to face a public backlash.
That's a good idea. It'll definitely cause a stir.
Lately, these kinds of things have received much negative attention. It's better to avoid them, I think.
Thanks to everyone, from the juniors to the mid-level employees, who openly shared their opinions. Our marketing department has been working in a great atmosphere without major mistakes. However, this harmonious work environment was about to change due to personnel reassignment. Every year, our company undergoes staff reassignments, and this time was no exception, with significant changes. A woman in her 30s replaced our easygoing and always smiling director, who had been watching over us. Lisa Higgins was somewhat of a celebrity. Rumors were that she got into the company through connections as the daughter of the EVP and had been doing whatever she pleased in various departments. In fact, she was known to favor and be kind to those who praised her, but would ruthlessly push out anyone who disagreed or challenged her. Since the announcement, I feared what would become of our department, filled with people who always speak their minds. My bad feeling turned out to be spot on. To get approval for a certain project, I went to see Director Higgins, my boss. This project resulted from meticulous discussions with the staff, considering the opinions of the sales team, and finally coming together. We all felt confident in it, and were just waiting for the go-ahead to start production. She glanced through the project proposal and carelessly tossed it aside, saying, "What is this? It's completely no good. Could you please specify what's wrong?" Perceiving my insistence as defiance, Director Higgins glared at me sharply.
A bad project is just that, bad. Redo it.
Could you please advise me from which side I should start redoing it? I asked that with confusion. Her response was cold and blunt.
I said the whole thing. This project is rejected.
Wait, please, can we at least discuss the content a bit more? I pleaded, but she ignored me and walked out of her office. I had to tell everyone about getting a negative response from Director Higgins, and we set up a new project meeting. Since we had a fair amount of confidence in the previous project, the mood in the meeting room was gloomy. In the midst of this, a cheerfully out-of-place voice rang out.
What's with the glum faces, everyone? I've come up with a great idea.
The plan she proposed was so outrageous, it was doubtful if any market research had been done. Even a fresh graduate could come up with something better, we all thought, stunned, listening to Director Higgins' presentation. After a while, a young male employee hesitantly raised his hand.
Sorry, but what are the persona settings for this project?
Persona? What's that? I'm talking right now, so no need for your unnecessary input, she retorted and returned to her presentation. Persona, a basic marketing term, refers to a detailed and concrete image of a customer. It was evident she didn't know this. While listening to the pool presentation, everyone was quietly exchanging glances. All the members were confused. When she finished and asked if there were any questions, I raised my hand after some thought and spoke up clearly. Sorry, Director, but we can't go forward with this project. Her demeanor changed instantly.
What do you mean?
To be honest, this project is not viable as a plan. In marketing, market research is crucial and at this point, Director Higgins let out an exaggerated sigh.
You don't get it.
What don't I get?
Your own position.
She said coldly, looking down on me. What does that mean? I began, but Director Higgins interrupted without letting me finish.
You're fired. Don't bother coming in next month.
Normally, a director couldn't just fire an employee on their own. But she, being a connection-based hire, must have had some influence I couldn't contend with. And so, I was suddenly fired from the company I had served for over 30 years. Despite my confusion and sadness, there was no reversing the dismissal. Eventually, I decided to move on, using my remaining leave to search for a new job. I only have connections at my current workplace, but thanks to a friend of mine who helped me out, it looks like I won't miss my meal at my age. My only concern was for the colleagues I was leaving behind. Regrettably, today was my last day. I hope that I could have a chat with everyone today, my last day of work. However, that didn't go as planned either. While I was tidying up my desk, Director Higgins suddenly called me. I was thinking of resigning without talking to her anymore, but since she summoned me, I reluctantly headed to her office. Then she dropped a bombshell.
Mr. Incompetent, take over the $15 million deal.
Confused about a handover on my last day, I asked her for clarification, only to hear an unbelievable response. I'll forget your firing ever happened for now. So, can you start on this deal right away? Though having my dismissal reversed might seem positive, I already had another job lined up. I couldn't just ignore the arrangements made with my new employer. More than anything, I didn't want to be manipulated by her anymore. Handling a large project worth $15 million to an employee who was suddenly fired is also somewhat strange. Even if Director Higgins' dad is the EVP, I can't stand her making arbitrary decisions like this anymore. I reached a decision and asked her, "Can I see the documents?" Mistaking my intent, she smugly handed over the documents. Flipping through, I confirmed what I thought. My name was already in the column for the person in charge of that document. However, the date was from several months ago, before I was told I was being fired. Why did she bring up this deal now? Understanding her intentions, I spoke up firmly. It's impossible since you've named me specifically. Since I'm being fired, I'll excuse myself.
What? You're turning down a $15 million project?
She exclaimed. Yes, to be precise, I can't accept it under your leadership. I'll be handling similar projects at my new job.
What?
At my words, Director Higgins stood up abruptly, making a loud noise, revealing a disheveled appearance I had never seen.
What do you mean?
She demanded, slamming her hand on the desk. I sighed and began explaining. When I was fired, I first consulted a former colleague from sales. He was originally meant to join the marketing department, but chose to return to sales instead. Now, he was a sales director at another beverage company. I still went out for drinks with him, and I valued his advice as a senior in job transitions. He listened quietly to my story, then casually offered,
"Why don't you join us?"
"Really? Is that okay?" I was taken aback but grateful. He seemed to be on good terms with the HR director at his company and told me he would try to talk to him. Things moved quickly from there. I never expected to transition so smoothly at this stage of my career. I had secured a job at a competing beverage company, assigned to the marketing department. It felt like a stroke of luck. During my interview, the HR director asked me something. They wanted to know if I knew about a major project that had recently started. It was a much-discussed plan about forming a business alliance with a rival company. The money involved was substantial. Due to the alliance between rival companies, it was a hot topic in the industry, so I had heard about it. However, I didn't know about the specific details. When I said so, the HR director looked puzzled. According to their records, I was involved in the project. Surprised, I instinctively said that couldn't be, but then it made sense. This project had indeed been officially brought to our company's attention. The project was initially addressed to me, but Director Higgins had covertly tried to take over, later deciding to let go when it became too much. Her attempt at usurping was bad enough, but not seeing it through was worse. Her attitude towards work infuriated me. She had likely climbed to her position through power and claiming others' achievements. Realizing how poorly she had handled the situation, I let out another deep sigh. Director Higgins, who had been listening to me, started trembling and then shouted,
That's unacceptable. You must take this project.
"But even if you say that," frustrated that I had no intention of taking over, the director turned back to the staff and said,
Are you running away? If you leave, the remaining members will handle it. You are such a bastard for leaving your colleagues.
Well, feeling like my colleagues who had helped me so much were being held hostage, I was lost for words. But then something happened. Everyone's attention was captured by a figure entering the office. He was a man dressed in a finely tailored suit, exuding a dignified aura.
That's enough, Lisa.
It was EVP Higgins.
Dad.
Director Higgins, taken aback, stepped back. She hadn't expected her dad to intervene. Mr. Higgins. I was equally surprised. EVP Higgins, a man I rarely see around the office. He rarely visited the marketing department, if ever. Despite knowing it was my last day, I hadn't expected him to come.
Sorry about this, Kevin. My daughter has caused you trouble.
He said apologetically. No, I never expected you to come.
Well, I do love my daughter. I've looked the other way until now, but I thought it was too much this time. I don't even know how to begin apologizing to you.
Saying that, EVP Higgins politely apologized. Please, no need to apologize.
Why are you doing this for him, Dad?
Director Higgins's expression as she said this was filled with anxiety and seemed frightened.
You shouldn't say such a person about Kevin. We were colleagues in sales.
EVP Higgins corrected her firmly. I had a long-standing relationship with the VP Higgins from our sales days. Since he became an executive, we have rarely seen each other inside the company, but he occasionally invites me for drinks. I was contacted with him during my paid leave, and I had been explaining the whole situation regarding this incident.
But Dad, I am this person's superior.
Thinking you can do anything because you're the boss is a grave mistake.
EVP Higgins raised her voice, causing Director Higgins to visibly flinch.
Lisa, you've gone too far. You're an adult, a professional. I'm sorry, but you'll have to face the consequences, even as my daughter.
Wait, Dad, I haven't done anything wrong.
Director Higgins, pale-faced, clung to her dad.
I've been listening to you guys outside the room. Using your mood to dictate someone's career is unacceptable. You're not suited for leadership.
That's not true. I did well in my previous department.
Director Higgins, tears and rise, insisted.
You've always climbed the ladder by taking credit for others' work. That's not real work. It's time to stop playing house.
It's terrible to call it playing house. I was doing it properly.
Despite Director Higgins' tearful plea, EVP Higgins turned her back on her daughter, not listening.
I will report this matter to the president myself. It's my fault for letting it go this far. Kevin, I'm truly sorry for what happened. I hope you can fully utilize your abilities in your new position. I'm praying for your success.
Thank you. If it's okay, I'd like to go out for drinks again. EVP Higgins smiled narrowly at my words, leaving Director Higgins, who was in tears, and exiting the marketing department. Not long after my resignation, Director Higgins' fate was also decided. She was demoted and transferred to a remote sales office. A clear case of being sidelined. EVP Higgins voluntarily offered to cut her own executive compensation. The marketing department team, as usual, was voicing their opinions freely and seemed to be fully engaged in their planning meetings. They appeared to be quite satisfied with their new boss, and the emails I occasionally received from them sounded cheerful. I hope they never forget that honesty and continue to have fulfilling days ahead.
Kevin.
A young male employee approached me while I was looking at my PC. What's up?
Check out this post. It's going viral.
What? Which one are you talking about?
This one.
He said, showing me his cell phone screen. Wow, so many comments.
We did it. This will definitely be a topic of conversation.
Reading through the numerous comments, I couldn't help but strike a victory pose. This photo came out great too. The male employee chuckled at my words. What's funny?
No, it's just, I always forget because you talk so casually, but there's quite an age difference between you and me, Kevin. I just felt a bit of a generation gap there.
Where? What part? In my flustered state, he dropped a cold one-liner.
That's a secret.
Why? Tell me.
Can't do that.
The male employee grinned and walked back to his desk. What's that all about? I muttered, still not understanding where the generation gap lay, and turned my gaze back to my PC. Since my job change, a few months had passed. Even though I was still in the same industry and marketing department, the internal systems and ways of working were of course different. Learning everything new at this age was quite challenging. Lately, everyone from the young to the senior members has started to talk to me more openly. It was a great joy to work in an environment where everyone had strong opinions and we could learn and grow from each other. The $15 million project is still ongoing. Ultimately, my trusted colleague at my former company took over my responsibilities, which was a relief. Seeing each other at meetings has become one of my joys. Since my career change, I've realized there's still so much to learn in marketing. Despite being older, I'm still a newcomer here and eager to absorb as much as I can.
Kevin, the meeting is starting.
Hearing my colleague's voice, I quickly stood up from my seat. All right, I'm on my way. With a spring in my step, I headed to the conference room. I wonder what ideas will be shared today. Filled with anticipation, I opened the door to the meeting room.
One day, I was dining at a fancy hotel with my son, Henry. Just because you only graduated from high school, you can't get any good job, right? You're at the bottom of society. High school grads seem to run in the family.
That's when a former classmate, who had become the hotel manager, thoroughly belittled me. Henry got angry at this.
Is that the attitude of the manager? My dad has been advancing on his own 2 feet. Even though you know my dad, I can forgive your attitude. And high school grads have their own pride and determination. It's not pleasant to be dismissed in a single word. In fact, you don't need to come to work from tomorrow.
What are you even talking about?
Confused, she stood there. Henry sighed. Then he pulled a business card from his breast pocket and placed it on the table so that she and everyone else around could see it. My name is Oliver. Born and raised between parents of gentle nature. My childhood was surrounded by bucks of various genres. People thought I was a quiet boy. Life didn't change much through elementary and middle school. Thanks to my extensive reading, I never struggled academically. My knowledge and thinking skills always put me at the top of my class. As I was graduating middle school, the adults around me expected me to go on to an elite university. I had a childhood friend. Her name is Ann Davis. She always drew me into her circle of friends. Whether it was field trips, camps, or school trips, she was always by my side. She saved me from a lonely school life. Her constant saying to me was, "Oliver, you're capable. You should have more confidence." This came more frequently once we reached middle school. She grew up in a well-off family, always excelling academically and even playing piano and violin. She looked cute and had a lot of talent. She continued to excel in middle school, always showing her perfect scores to her parents with a laugh. However, her smile faded once when she didn't score perfectly on a test. The subject was math, and the teacher had added a tricky question at the end and couldn't solve it completely, though she got close and earned partial credit. At the time, she gripped her test paper in frustration. But the real problem came when the teacher said,
"Someone solved it."
She knew immediately who it must be. Clutching the wrinkled test paper, she stormed down the hallway. Bursting through the classroom door, she stood in front of a boy.
It was you, wasn't it? The one who solved the math problem.
So absorbed in his book, the boy didn't realize the words were directed at him. And, getting no reaction from him, became even more irritated.
Are you even listening to me? Hey, Oliver.
Her loud voice finally caught my attention.
What's up, Anne?
It's not what's up. You're the one who solved the math problem.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You must know. The tests have been returned.
Well, I'll get mine next period.
Embarrassed by her mistake, she suddenly laughed awkwardly and then hurried out of the classroom.
I wonder what she really wanted.
Back then, I just thought her actions were strange. But when I thought back on it after entering middle school, I realized she must have been terribly embarrassed. As for that math test, it turned out I was indeed the only one in the grade who got it right, just as she had said. Maybe because of such incidents, Anne started asking me to show her my test score every time the test was returned. And when she saw my perfect test score, She showed me hers in frustration. Although Anne's grades were not as good as mine, she was still second in our grade. She could have been prouder of her own achievements, but she always looked frustrated. One day, Anne asked me, "How do you manage to keep getting perfect scores?" I replied,
As someone who has been immersed in literature, to me, tests are just the teacher's wishes. They're making tests to make sure we understand. So, listen carefully in class, and don't forget to prepare and review. Then, challenge yourself to problem books, and you'll start getting better scores. The reason you can't beat me is that you don't spend enough time facing yourself, always thinking about winning.
After I finished speaking, I checked her expression. She was looking at me intently. Her face seemingly lit up with joy.
No wonder I can't beat you. I really respect you right now. I see.
It seemed like she had resolved something within herself, but there was still something mysterious mixed in her behavior. Sometimes I just couldn't understand her. But that's exactly why she intrigued me. Unlike others, she had her own solid core of self. Others just blindly followed what their parents or teachers said. That's why I started to like her a bit more. I wanted to know more about her. What we call liking someone was sprouting within me. By the time I clearly realized this, people around us were teasingly asking if Anne and I were dating.
No way. Not with someone so boring.
Anne would say, her face turning red. After that, Anne and I became high school students. Our school sent a lot of students to top-level universities. And also became one of those aiming for the top university. I wanted to watch over her future, so I decided to take on the challenge with her. In a space filled with elites known as the advanced class, we improved our academic skills through healthy competition with those around us. Even after school ended, we were immersed in studying. On weekends, I attended study sessions and studied ahead of others. During the summer break, I had a lot of time, so I was able to take time to study subjects I wasn't good at. In the next year, I started thinking about my university major. Anne and I were probably the only ones studying so much at the same high school. When we had some spare time from studying in the summer of the following year, Anne and I rushed off to a local summer festival. We celebrated our academic achievements with birthday presents of new clothes from our parents. With the purpose of showcasing these, we went to a local festival. She appeared in front of me, her face flushed, at the appointed time. By then, it was starting to dawn on us that maybe we liked each other. So, her blush was probably just shyness.
You look beautiful, Anne. It really suits you.
Stop it. You're making me blush.
Her fidgeting in her summer dress made my heart race. My heart pounded painfully, fluttered, and then made me breathe heavily.
Shall we start going around? Let's get something to drink.
Okay.
We didn't hold hands. Instead, we made sure not to lose sight of each other in the crowd, moving through and occasionally escaping from it. During that time, we were able to buy delicious foods and exchange attractive accessories as gifts. Such moments were too much fun and all too short. Before we knew it, it was time for the grand fireworks, a local specialty, to wildly bloom in the night sky. Anne and I projected the colorful fireworks into each other's eyes, memorizing each other's smiles dyed in the vivid colors of the flames. I thought these happy times would continue. After graduation, I planned to confess, and then we would start dating. But an event that tore apart those dreams and ideals drastically changed my life. The road to the high school runs through the downtown area. One day, as I was biking through as usual, I heard an eerie scream from behind. When I looked back, there was a large black shadow. By the time I realized what it was, I was already being thrown into the air. And just before I felt the terror, I completely lost consciousness. Later, I regained consciousness and was able to receive proper treatment. At that time, and was there too, crying. That's when I was informed that I had been hit by a car speeding down the downtown street. The memory of what I saw just before losing consciousness and the fact that I was hit by a car merged in my mind, and the fear exploded inside me, causing my body to shake terribly. Anne sat beside me and enveloped me in a gentle embrace, whispering softly,
"It's okay, Oliver. Your injuries will heal quickly. You don't have to worry about anything. You don't have to be afraid, okay?"
At that moment, I felt her motherly love and affection. Her gentle embrace, like holding a crumbling glass sculpture, was able to soothe me for that moment. The warmth of that time was something I could not forget for a while. However, the fear that had been seared into my heart did not disappear. Just a simple trigger would bring back the memories of that day, and I would lose my sanity. After the storm of my mental distress subsided, I would feel negative for a while. I could not bring myself to study at all. Moreover, thinking that such an incident could happen again, I would lose sight of the meaning of my own existence. Everything I had built up could be shattered by someone else's carelessness or irresponsibility. Thinking about this made me lose sight of any meaning or value in doing anything. For me, who aspires to be a top university, it is a disadvantage to not be able to study well at this time. So I felt an extraordinary impatience with myself. This led me to a life relying on tranquilizers to maintain my mental stability. Yet, I still couldn't progress with my studies. But even in such a state, Anne continued to encourage and support me. However, she also was aiming for an elite university. As someone aiming for the same university, I knew the immense amount of study she needed to undertake. That's why it was hard. I was happy to receive her kind words, but thinking that it might jeopardize Anne's future made me feel suffocated. Just like I was struggling every day, and gradually lost the luxury to offer gentle words day by day. That's what I made a decision.
If I don't pull myself together now, everything I've built up will be wasted. I don't want to leave you behind. That's not what I want to do.
Then, just leave me alone. I'm trying to figure it out on my own. No more, just stop fussing over me.
No, all right, if you say so. I don't know you anymore. I'll go on alone.
Yes, do that. And forget about me, and grasp your own dreams. Stop talking to me.
You idiot.
Anne slapped me strongly. Strangely, it didn't hurt. More than that, seeing her really sad and pained expression as she ran away from me before, I felt a very deep pain. A pain I would probably never forget. After that, high school life became awkward. Even my close guy friends would laugh and ask if maybe Anne and I had broken up. Honestly, I could easily laugh it off or brush it aside. But the hardest part was not having Anne there in the places where she would usually say good morning or take care. That was really hard on me. Gradually, I became so reluctant to go to school that I eventually stopped going altogether. I changed the university I was aiming for. I ended up applying to a much lower-ranked university in a local area than the one I had aimed for. But there was no way I could score decently, given that I couldn't focus on my studies. In the end, I couldn't even pass for that significantly downgraded university. There were still many universities I could get into. However, my family wasn't very wealthy, and due to my period of truancy, I couldn't even get a decent scholarship. If I didn't get into a public university, I would definitely have to take a gap year. So, I needed to try to get into a national or public university. But I had lost all interest by then. What should I do? I had pushed away the person who had always supported me. I had betrayed the expectations of my parents, my teachers, everyone, all of it, and here I was, fallen. Doing something now wouldn't brighten my future anymore. Even if I tried, the terror of that time would just break me again. I was just a dropout, a burnout now.
Don't joke around.
That's what Anne said to me when I was thinking all this.
Oliver, you can do it. You're the guy I couldn't beat on grades no matter how hard I tried. You can't give up on someone like this.
Her face looked both frustrated and sad, which stabbed me in the heart, because it overlapped with the face she showed that day.
It's fine, Anne. The Oliver you knew is gone. He's gone. So, please stop expecting anything from me.
What? For 4 years? No, even before that. You just easily dismiss all the goodwill from the teachers who have supported you all this time. That's right. You might as well walk the path of a high school graduate, suffer on your own, and then really disappear.
She slammed the door to my room and ran out of the house. Hearing her loud footsteps, I felt that she had finally left my side for good. It made me sad. 30 years have passed since then. Now, I'm quite a middle-aged man, but I haven't become a reclusive overweight guy. Surprisingly, I'm now in a busy job that requires me to travel all over the country. I earn more than the average person could reach, living somewhat luxuriously. That said, I'm not splurging on luxury cars or pouring money into expensive watches. I sometimes try expensive wine, or picky about the pens I use for work. I spend my money on these small joys. Nothing else interests me. As for love, well, I don't currently wish to be with anyone. After I broke up with Anne, I met a woman. Unlike Anne, who always wanted to lead, this woman was calm and usually stepped back a bit. Back then, I was quite sharp, and I didn't really like her. I thought she was dull because there was no competition. But when I was about to collapse from running too hard, she always quietly supported me. I fell for her kindness and proposed to her. Today, I'm going to have dinner at a first-class hotel restaurant with our only son. He, a young adult, is also a busy man, living through hectic days alongside me. We only get to eat together when our days off coincide. Because it's such a rare opportunity, I quickly made a reservation at the restaurant.
Thanks for today, Dad. I can't believe you invited me to such an amazing place.
We're family. No need to be so formal.
Right. Looking back, Dad, you were quite immature dealing with a kid.
No need to laugh about those memories. Look, the food is about to arrive.
Yes, indeed.
Henry and I came to toast today. Our eyes turned to the dishes being served. A dish that captured the essence of spring with melting snow and fresh greenery. Beside it, glasses filled with champagne. After the waiters left, we quickly raised our glasses to make a toast. We exchanged smiles and then drank. As the main dish concluded and the full course was nearing its end, the distinct sound of heels approached our table. I was at a loss for words when I turned to see who it was.
Thank you for visiting our hotel today. I am the hotel manager, Ann Davis. Oh, no.
She was surprised to see my face.
Oliver, why are you here?
And you. I had no idea you worked here. For a while, we just looked at each other. Then, regaining her composure first, and frowned.
Why are you even here? You must still be living that shut-in life on your parents' dime. You don't belong in a place like this, splurging with your parents' money. You've really hit rock bottom. You couldn't get a decent job because you only finished high school, right? You're at the bottom of society. A high-class place like this doesn't suit someone like you.
And she was harsh in her words toward me. Honestly, I didn't feel angry even after hearing that. But Henry felt differently.
Is that the attitude of the manager? My dad has been advancing on his own 2 feet. Even though you know my dad, I can forgive your attitude. And high school grads have their own pride and determination. It's not pleasant to be dismissed in a single word. In fact, you don't need to come to work from tomorrow.
Anne was taken aback by his words.
What do you know? You must be just like him. A high school grad, too. Guess it runs in the family. It's really disgusting.
But her momentum didn't stop. I finished my champagne with a deep sigh. And next to me, Henry spoke to her.
It seems this role is too much for you. Starting next month, we'll have a new manager here. You don't even have to come in tomorrow.
What are you talking about?
Confused, she stood there. He pulled out a business card from his breast pocket and placed it on a table where everyone could see. Now, I run a major hotel holdings company, overseeing numerous large hotels. The hotel we're in is under my company, and Henry is the direct manager. He has the ultimate authority to manage personnel here, and with a single contract or notice, he has the power to make decisions about people. Seeing the business card, Anne looked very surprised. Then her expression turned to anger, and she ran off toward the manager's office. Concerned, Henry and I paused our meal and followed her. When we entered the manager's office, there was Anne, her eyes red with tears, working on paperwork. Upon noticing us, she glared weakly at me.
Why did you come? You should just fire me and be done with it.
I'm sorry about earlier, but I won't leave until we've talked, so tell me, why did you say those things?
I don't know. Just leave me alone.
At first, Anne was reluctant to tack. I knew my approach earlier wasn't the best, but still, I felt a duty to hear her out. So I knelt down right in front of her while she was working. Seeing this, Anne stopped her work and began to fidget.
It seems like I'm in the way here.
Henry said that and quietly stepped out of the room, softly closing the door behind him. Once we were alone in the room, and stood still for a while. I thought it wouldn't be right to start the conversation myself, so I simply waited for her to speak. And just when I felt my sense of time might be numbing, she began to talk.
I've been so worried. After the way we parted, I was scared to meet you. I feared you'd hate me and yell at me never to come back. I've been lonely since university. The place you used to be has remained empty. Still, I had to move forward, so I just kept pushing myself. I worked and worked, climbing to a place where maybe Oliver would think I'm incredible. I made it. Thanks to that, I became the manager of this hotel. When I saw you here dining today, I was so happy. Finally, the time had come when you would see me. Now it was my turn to inspire you. But it seemed like you were living a much better life. Anger, sadness, and a mix of other emotions came flooding in.
I hugged Dan. As she was about to cry again, I wanted to soothe some of the tangled emotions inside her. But instead, I made her cry. I'm sorry, I let you run on feeling alone. It seems I caused you days of anguish and lonely times. In my arms, she continued to cry. If I held her tightly with both arms, she surely couldn't escape. I realized how small she was when I hugged her. As the color of the sun changed, she regained her composure.
But I'm relieved. It seems like you're moving forward properly.
Since then, I've thought a lot. I asked myself every night whether this was okay, and I realized I couldn't stay this way, so I started moving forward on my own.
I see. I'm sorry for saying such awful things.
The one who should apologize is me. It was me who made you suffer. With that, we decided to let bygones be bygones. I called Henry back from outside and told him to disregard earlier actions. Henry gladly accepted. When we got home, Henry asked,
Were you two dating back then?
No, it wasn't like that.
Oh, not like that, huh? So you liked her then?
Henry gave me a mischievous smile. You're a bit wicked, aren't you? Well, back in our student days, I think we both had feelings for each other, but something happened and I couldn't express my feelings.
Was it that accident during your senior year of high school?
Yeah, it took away my drive to move forward, and we ended up going our separate ways. To that, Henry casually responded,
I see. But why not start dating now? You two seem to have a great vibe in the manager's office, and she wouldn't show her tears to just anyone. She cried like that because it was in front of you.
Do you think so?
Yes, it might be nice to take her out to dinner. She probably still has feelings for you.
Really? What should I do?
No point in overthinking. Otherwise, you'll keep dwelling on mom's parsing, right?
That's true. Thanks to Henry's words, I felt encouraged to fulfill the promise I made to myself back then. But I still needed to sort out my feelings before seeing it again. That evening, I reminisced about the fun times of my youth, the screeching brakes that tore it apart, and the end of our youth together. That's where I've never been interested in any other woman. Her smile and cheerful expressions still shine brightly in my heart even now. In front of that light, all other stars seemed to fade. Speaking of which, her last name was still the same. The fact that her last name hasn't changed likely means she's still unmarried. Given the tears she showed, she probably hasn't found a partner she can trust her heart with. If that's the case, we can surely meet again and have a proper conversation. Thinking this, I sent an email to the contact information she gave me long ago. It might have changed by now, but I sent it hoping it would still reach her, and then I went to sleep. The contact information Anne gave me was still active. We didn't talk much there, but we firmly decided on a date. On the day, she appeared in age-appropriate attire. She still carried a hint of her old charm, emitting a beautiful aura. We entered the restaurant we had planned to dine at and enjoyed some desserts there. The smile she let slip was the same as it had been during our student days. I asked her about various things. After graduating university, Anne first worked at a bank to study the flow of money. From there, she switched jobs to a company under the holdings I manage. Leveraging her experience from her banking days, she quickly made her mark and was headhunted repeatedly. Eventually, her achievements caught the eye of the HR department at the holdings, and they invited her to join us. She agreed and officially switched to our company. She was a bit surprised when she saw the president of the holdings had the same name as me. But thinking back to how troubled I had been in our student days, she initially thought it was just a coincidence of names. Even after joining our company, she continued to shine with her talents. Back then, she was still young, and many men showed interest in her. However, Anne turned them all down, steadfastly remaining single. Why didn't you settle down with anyone?
Because, Oliver, you're still shining in my heart. I can't think of any other man. I still love you.
And she had continued to think of me and had reached middle age.
But Oliver, you're married, aren't you? You even have a son.
Yes, but my wife passed away a long time ago when she gave birth to him.
That must have been tough.
She had admired me since the times when I was still harsh towards everyone around me. Her kindness saved me. The shock of losing her has never faded.
I see. Then I want to help ease that pain. You're terribly weak when it comes to emotional pain. So I'll be your next support.
Anne, thank you. Looking into her earnest gaze, I remembered the Anne of the past. The passion and conviction in her eyes were as direct as they had been back then. It had been a long time since I'd seen those eyes, but having them directed at me today, I remembered. It was those beautiful, shining eyes that had sparked my affection. Some time had passed, and I had returned to my busy days. Today, I was headed to a ski resort in Colorado to address a minor issue and conduct an on-site inspection. On my phone was a message from Anne.
Take care.
It was just one line, but for me, it was the most motivating. After that dinner, Anne and I had started dating. However, given our ages, we often wondered what kind of relationship we should have. But over time, as we aligned our feelings and thoughts, we found a relationship that suited us. Though I'm busy every day, when we find time, we go to amusement parks or try trendy new drinks together. I hope to nurture our relationship further and perhaps marry soon. Back in my student days, I once pushed away the most important thing in my life. Normally, once something has left your side, it doesn't come back. But if you regret your actions and hope for its return, a miracle might happen. Having pushed Anne away and left her to fend for herself, I was fortunate to meet her again. I don't want to put this together by chance or fate. I've come to deeply cherish the connection I have with her. Since becoming involved with Anne, I've found even more motivation in my work. The concept behind the hotel chain I started. For those tired of the daily grind, those carrying heavy emotional burdens, and those seeking an escape from the ordinary, I travel across the United States today, building a hotel chain for them.
There's no future in such a rundown old factory like this. It's a good opportunity to cut off the loan altogether.
When I, who took over the management of the factory from my father, approached the bank to discuss financing for new equipment, my classmate, who was in charge of a loan, suddenly cut off the funding. My classmate has always looked down on me as a dull and uncool guy ever since we were kids. Their love for flashy things and choosing everything based on looks hasn't changed over time. Sure, our factory's exterior and equipment are old, and it might not meet their standards, but on what basis do they say there's no future?
All right, pay back the $100,000 you owe us, right away.
Got it. The next day, I immediately repaid the $100,000 we had borrowed. Then, right after, the bank's branch manager called me with a voice close to tears. My name is Norman Bates. I manage the factory I inherited from my father and make a living from it. My family consists of my wife and one daughter. My wife Olivia and I were originally working as employees for the same company, and even after getting married and having children, we had planned on building our home in that area. But one day, my father, who ran a factory back home, fell ill, leading to surgery and hospitalization, causing a bit of a stir. The surgery was successful, and he recovered enough to resume his daily life without any issues, but he couldn't continue managing his family's factory. With about 30 employees to think about and no other relatives or siblings to turn to, my father begged me to take over the factory. Some employees have been with us since I was a child. Like me, some of them have just started their own families. Since my mother had already passed away, there would also be concerns about my father living alone. Considering all this, I couldn't just ignore the situation. The countryside back home is quite different from here, and I'd have to quit my job. But I promise I won't let you and our daughter Mary go through any hardship. So, will you come with me? I earnestly appealed to Olivia, honestly expressing my desire to take over my father's factory. Bracing for blame or even a breakup, Olivia smiled gently and said, "Okay."
Mary loves Grandpa, so she'll be thrilled to be near him. And I believe in you, Norman. You can do it.
Determined to live up to Olivia's consideration, I began relearning how to manage a factory with all my might. Since taking over, I've been swamped with work, parenting, and studying management. I've been so busy, the last 3 years are almost a blur. Now, our daughter Mary is in first grade. The three of us are living quite happily. So far, I think I've managed to keep my promise not to let my family go through any hardship.
Norman, can we talk in the office after the morning assembly?
One morning, upon arriving at work, I was approached by Chris, the factory supervisor. Heading to the office as instructed, a discussion ensued with the clerk, Emma, joining in.
Lately, the intense heat has been causing a lot of employees to fall. I myself feel like I'm about to pass out when I'm on the floor for too long.
Especially concerned about the older employees. Not just heat stroke measures, but it might be good to update our equipment and machinery for better efficiency.
Chris and Emma are highly skilled workers who have been with this factory for a long time. Even during the previous owner's time, they were always proactive in suggesting improvements for the workplace environment. Having been fondly cared for by them since I was a child, they are people I can trust. Understood. I'll contact the bank today and propose a discussion about financing. After finishing the conversation with the two, I promptly reached out to Sinclair Bank, which has been assisting us since my father's era. Upon requesting a loan, I was told that a bank representative would visit us tomorrow. I heard that the bank loan officer who had dealt with my father is retiring at the end of this year, and now someone else has taken over the account. It seems the new officer is about my age. For me, as the second generation, this could be a good chance to get to know the bank, hoping to build a good relationship with the new officer. However, any illusions I had were quickly shattered.
Oh no, this place is a mess.
The new officer, Jake, blurted out as his first words. This Jake turned out to be a classmate of mine. Surprised to find out he had returned to our hometown after going off to a prestigious university in the city. Jake was known among our classmates as someone who easily hurts others, and I've had no good impressions of him since high school. Fond of flashy things and judging everything by its appearance, I, not being flashy, often found myself unjustly criticized by him. He hasn't changed a bit since back then. Despite my unease, I led him to the reception room and began our discussion. With the aging of our equipment, it's starting to interfere with our employees' work, so we're looking to update some of our facilities. Would it be possible to get this amount of financing? While showing the documents Emma and I had prepared, Jake seemed disinterested and half listening throughout. His attitude made me slightly irritated. "Are you listening?" When I asked, Jake let out a heavy sigh.
Norman, do you seriously believe what you're saying?
His tone was incredibly condescending and confrontational. Huh? Unable to understand why he was acting this way, I frowned and replied. Then Jake sighed deeply again and, crossing his legs, blurted out,
"There's no future in such a rundown old factory like this. Maybe it'll last another 2 or 3 years. There's no need for new equipment. No need at all. It's a good opportunity to cut off the loan altogether."
Jake's brazen statement nearly made my blood boil, but I knew that losing my temper now would only play into his hands. I managed to keep my composure and responded quietly, "On what basis do you say there's no future?"
You still haven't repaid the $100,000 you owe us. And you're asking for more under these circumstances? The bank isn't a charity, you know.
That doesn't answer my question. Have we ever missed a monthly repayment? Apparently displeased with my quick retort, Jake clicked his tongue and stood up from his seat.
Anyway, we can't provide the loan. No matter what you say, it's up to us to decide whether to lend or not.
With that, Jake quickly left the reception room. The conversation wasn't over yet. Thinking this, I chased after him.
"Daddy, I'm home."
Just as Jake and I stepped outside at the same time, we heard my daughter Mary's voice as she returned from piano lessons. Noticing Jake, Mary immediately smiled and gave a beautiful greeting.
"Hello."
She always greets the factory employees, so she must have quickly assumed Jake was someone work-related and did the same. Olivia was watching this from a short distance away. Jake, on his part, looked at Mary with annoyance and didn't bother to respond. What's more, turning his gaze towards Olivia, he started smirking.
"Are you the wife here? Well, you're young and pretty too."
Jake stared at Olivia for a moment, then slowly started to approach her. Sensing something odd about his behavior, Mary grabbed my arm and hid behind me. Olivia gave a wry smile and made a brief greeting, then hurried towards me.
I was classmates with Norman, you know. Must be tough living with the owner of such a renowned factory as your husband, huh? If you ever need money, just let me know.
As he passed by, Jake unilaterally said this and suddenly grabbed Olivia's hand, forcing his business card into her grasp. Hey!
Norman, it's okay.
I almost lashed out at Jake, but Olivia hastily pulled me back.
Don't do anything rash. He's from the bank.
Olivia quickly realized that Jake was a bank employee who had been dealing with our factory's financing, and Mary was there too. By the time I regained my composure, Jake had already left.
Such an unpleasant bank officer. Duck, that was creepy.
Olivia brushed off where Jake had grabbed her and was about to tear up the business card he had forced on her. Wait, I'll keep this. It might serve as evidence. I did ask for a loan, but he flatly refused. I'll go talk to Chris and Emma about it. You head home first. After sending off Olivia and Mary home, I discussed the entire incident with Chris and Emma. As expected, both of them, along with the rest of the factory staff, unanimously agreed that the new officer is really unpleasant.
It might get busy in the second half of the year, but we can manage the $100,000. Let's just pay it off in one go and cut ties with Sinclair Bank.
Emma's suggestion was immediately agreed upon by the whole factory. The next day, I promptly repaid the $100,000 in full and, as a matter of courtesy, contacted Sinclair Bank, though I didn't want to. I ended up speaking with Jake by chance. As soon as he realized it was me, his tone became arrogantly dismissive. But it didn't bother me today. Thank you for your time yesterday. We've made a lump sum payment of $100,000, so please confirm. We'll be moving to another bank. We've been under your care since my predecessor's time. After delivering a slow and polite farewell, Jake snorted triumphantly. Got it, got it. That's refreshing to hear.
Hope you find a bank willing to take you. Well, do your best.
Thanks. Now, we're just former classmates, huh? You do your best too. It's probably going to be really tough from here on out. With that, I quickly hung up the phone. I felt as if a weight had been lifted off my shoulders, a sense of relief. The call from the branch manager of Sinclair Bank came the next day, in the afternoon. The branch manager, Tommy, who had been involved with my father's generation, was someone I had met a few times at the factory when I was a child.
Norman, I am terribly sorry for the extreme rudeness our employee displayed the other day. Please allow me to apologize once more.
Tommy's voice over the phone was frantically apologetic, and I did my best to calm him down, saying, "Please, take it easy. Anyway, I will come over right now," he said before hanging up. I was about to head to the bank, leaving the rest to Chris, when Olivia approached me.
I have something to say to you, so I'm coming.
Olivia, who usually stays out of work matters, looked unusually serious. She hadn't said much since Jake forcibly gave her his business card, but it seemed she had been quite upset since that incident. When Olivia and I arrived at Sinclair Bank, Tommy was anxiously waiting near the entrance. As soon as he saw us, he hurried over and loudly apologized. "I am so sorry for the behavior of our discourteous employee." His actions caught the attention of other customers, who began to look our way and murmur among themselves. Tommy, you're causing a disturbance for the other customers. Can we move somewhere else?" Somehow calming down Tommy, we were led to a private room, where he again offered a vigorous apology. But of course, Tommy himself was not at fault. I detailed our recent encounter with Jake, how the financing was unilaterally terminated, the disrespectful way he treated my family, and that the person we truly desired an apology from was not the branch manager but Jake. At that moment, without a knock, the door to the private room opened.
Hey Norman. Don't just say things that make you look good.
Without any greeting, he barged in and started with that remark.
What kind of way is that to talk? Norman is an important customer.
It's fine. He's a classmate of mine.
Even in front of his boss, he didn't flinch and stuck to his guns. It was almost impressive, in a way. As I was idly thinking this, Olivia was watching the exchange between Jake and the branch manager with a look of disbelief.
So what if he's a classmate? Do you even realize how significant his factory, Bates Manufacturing, is?
Just some old factory in the countryside, right? What's so special about that?
You idiot. Haven't you read the handover documents from your predecessor? Bates Manufacturing produces products that are renowned worldwide. A rare gem of a factory.
World-renowned. That's an exaggeration. If that were true, they wouldn't need financing. They'd find their own funds. For equipment, they'd contract their own suppliers.
That's not the point. Can't you even understand that? Are you really a graduate of an elite university? Or is that a false claim?
Unable to watch their back and forth any longer, I finally interjected, not as a business associate, but as a classmate. What's that supposed to mean? Deciding whether to lend or not is up to us. You might think you're in a position to choose, but just as you have the right to choose, we have the right to choose too. Jake, just like before, let out a deep sigh and dismissively said, "What foolishness," as he sat down on the opposite sofa. It seemed he truly didn't understand, so I decided to explain it to him from scratch, in detail. To start, the number of companies that deal with Bates Manufacturing's products is countless, from small local firms to large ones, both within and outside the county. Most of those companies, like us, trust Sinclair Bank and have their deposits there as well. All combined, they probably account for about 70% of Sinclair Bank's deposits. And now, that 70% of customers are one by one stopping their dealings with Sinclair Bank and switching to other banks. Seeing how flustered Tommy was, it was probably just like that. Given the risk of bankruptcy, his desperation to apologize was understandable. I mean, it turns out there are more places that would side with us than with you. After hearing my story, Jake was trembling with anger. However, after a while, Jake let out a snort and started making snide remarks again.
Did you come all this way just to say that sarcastic remark? Our company is so great. We'll cause you to go bankrupt. Is that supposed to be a threat? What a terrible personality.
Could you apologize, please? I looked straight at Jake and said that, if you think it's corruption, that's fine. More than that, you've ridiculed our factory to no end. You've been extremely rude to my wife and daughter. I didn't come here for an apology from the branch manager, but from you.
The fact remains it's just an old factory that skimps on proper equipment. And I only gave your wife my business card. It was just a greeting, a gesture of goodwill.
He insisted he was in the right. It seemed he was twisting the facts to his boss. Just as I was about to present the business card Olivia had given me as evidence, Olivia forcefully stepped in.
Jake, thank you for your business card the other day. When you said, "Call me if you're ever short on cash," I thought it might be some kind of pickup or something. But you do this with everyone, don't you?
With that, Olivia played a video on her phone she had somehow prepared. It showed Jake at a local bakery, telling the female owner, "I can't keep dealing with such a small bakery anymore."
The bakery's owner is a friend of mine. I was thinking of buying some pastries on my way home from work when I happened to catch this.
While saying this, Olivia turned up the volume on her phone. In the video, Jake was doing exactly what he did to Olivia, telling the bakery's owner, "Call me if you're ever short on cash," and handing her his business card.
I wasn't a corporate employee for long, so I might not know much. But is this how you always greet people?
Trying hard not to burst out laughing at Olivia's feigned ignorance, I managed to keep it in.
No. That's none of your business.
Jake's voice was weaker than before, perhaps a bit damaged by being shown up.
If it's none of my business, then please don't hand me your business card. It's creepy. I may not know how important bank employees are, but I do understand that what you're doing is extremely rude.
Olivia's tone was sharp, enough to make even me flinch. Jake, having no comeback, simply turned away. Seeing Jake had no intention of apologizing, I let out a small sigh. Looks like he's not interested in an apology, so let's just wrap this up. Sorry for taking up your time, Tommy. Thanks for everything you've done for us. With that, Tommy was almost prostrating himself, begging, please, anything but that. Seeing him go to such lengths, I really thought Jake was hopeless.
Jake will be dismissed today, and he will take full responsibility. So, could you please reconsider?
Upon hearing the word dismissed, Jake's eyes widened, and after a moment of dumbfounded silence, he literally leaped at the branch manager.
Wait. Tommy, I'm so sorry. From now on, I'll make sure to judge people by looking at them from now on. So just don't fire me.
Silence. Stop disgracing yourself further.
Tommy shouted, nearly in tears, after addressing the bickering pair with the "I'll contact you later," which they seemed not to hear. I was exhausted. Let's go home.
Yo.
Olivia and I, both drained, left the bank, leaving the two behind. Later on, I had another talk with Tommy and was able to successfully secure financing. As he declared, Jake was dismissed that very day. I hesitated for a bit about whether to continue our dealings with Sinclair Bank, but decided to go on as before, accepting that responsibility had been taken. The factory's equipment and crisis were completely renewed, and the employees could now work in a more comfortable environment than ever before. It looks like we'll be able to get through the busy latter half of the year with this setup. Since then, the factory's performance has improved even further. And now we've even started selling our own brand of products. I didn't know what became of Jake after his dismissal, but according to a recent story from a local classmate, he's now working in a wooden factory in the countryside, enduring the cold and heat while doing meticulous work. If he's found honest work and is doing it earnestly, there might still be hope for him. He'll surely gain valuable experiences he could never have had while arrogantly sitting behind a bank counter.
Dad, you have to come to my piano recital this time.
I don't know. I'm pretty busy right now.
What are you talking about, Norman, Mr. President? Leave this to us and go to Mary's recital.
Thanks to you, our work environment has improved, so it's all good. Norman, you've really grown up just like your dad. We can leave this place to you with peace of mind.
Chris and Emma, who had doted on me since I was little, said this with the same kind smiles. Grateful to them both, I lifted the jumping, joyous Mary into my arms and told her, I'm looking forward to it.
How does it feel to become subordinate to your former peer? I got promoted, and you, being sent back to the US as a mere staff member after just 3 years in Germany, proves you were just dead weight, huh?
Every day, I'm met with such cold words from my female boss. It seems she's intent on painting me as the guy who can't do his job. Her task assignments are utterly unreasonable, clearly meant to harass me alone. But if that's what she wants, I've come to accept it. I couldn't see any other way to make it up to her. However, I was made to realize that this was a mistake by someone, Today, she brought in a heap of documents again.
Summarize these papers in under 2 hours. Fail, and you're fired.
Enough of this fruitless exchange. Just a sec. There, done.
What?
I'm Tom Jackson. Currently, I'm facing a dilemma at work. The company I joined operates globally in the tech sector. I'm currently at the headquarters in the US, but until a few months ago, I was working at the branch in Germany. Remembering the time spent with my colleagues in Germany, I already feel nostalgic. That was when I received the order to return to the US. Yes, thank you. I'll be taking my leave now. Exiting the branch manager's office, I head back to my own.
Hey, Tom. So the boss said, as expected, huh?
That was my colleague, Michael. The conversation was in German. Yay, just as everyone thought, I'm heading back to the US. Hearing this, other colleagues gather around.
What? So it was a transfer. Thought it might happen someday, but it's gonna be lonely without you.
Our go-to ace is leaving Germany. I'm worried about the future.
Well, Tom was here for that project. Now that it's done, the US needs him, I guess.
Here's to Tom's new beginning. Let's celebrate.
Moving from the US to Germany for work was a challenge. I wasn't very good at German, and of course, knew no one. The team at the German branch welcomed me warmly, helping me grow at an incredible pace to the point where they'd call me an ace. Though I'd never consider myself as such, I was honored and happy. Before returning to the US, my colleagues threw a farewell party. They love their parties, often throwing them for birthdays or project completions. I'm not great with alcohol, but just being in the atmosphere was more than enough fun. And that day, the mood was anything but somber, filled with good times.
Hey, Tom. Maria got cozy with you. But what's next?
Michael, more cheerful when drunk, asked, draping an arm around me. Maria, a female colleague 4 years junior to me and Michael, had recently asked me out. I hadn't told anyone, yet Michael knew. Germans tend to be quite open-minded, so it wouldn't be surprising if Maria had talked about it herself. Oh, I turned her down politely. It'd be difficult to start something with me returning to the US, and I told her she deserves someone better. Hearing this, Michael sighed. Man, that's a shame. Maria's the office beauty, hardworking and a great girl. I'd date her in a heartbeat. Well, she's too good for me, honestly. As I laughed, Michael turned serious for a moment. Wonder what kind of wonderful person you'll end up with, Tom. Yeah, I guess so.
Make sure you tell me when that happens.
Of course. Honestly, I couldn't even picture myself in a relationship. I was beginning to think maybe I'd end up living alone my whole life. But hearing Michael say that made me really happy. I hope such a future comes someday. I thought, if only a little. And so, I returned to the headquarters in the US after 3 years.
This is Tom Jackson, who will be working with us from today.
The department head, Jane Smith, introduced me in a very brief manner. I'm Tom Jackson. I've worked here for 6 years since my fresh graduate days, and I was in the Germany branch for 3 years. There might be some areas where I lack, but I look forward to working with you." After I introduced myself, everyone in the office applauded. I was in a newly established apartment, different from before I went to Germany, so most faces were unfamiliar. Except for Jane Smith, the department head.
"The seat's over there,"
she said after the morning assembly, pointing somewhere in the distance. Obviously, over there wasn't enough for me to go on, so when I asked for more details, she coldly brushed me off with, "It's where nothing's placed, obviously. Can't you figure that out?" So I found a likely spot on my own and settled in. Phew, I'm worried about the future. Back at the headquarters seat after a long while, I felt both nostalgia and anxiety as I reminisced about the past. Actually, Jane Smith, the cold female boss from earlier, and I joined the company in the same year. That year, there were only 2 of us as new employees, so we often went out for drinks to share information and occasionally vent our frustrations. It didn't take long for us to become irreplaceable to each other. In the summer of our second year as working adults, when we were 24, Jane and I started dating. We kept it a secret within the company to not affect our work, but since we worked on the same projects, we understood each other's work struggles and business well. Being colleagues and friends from the start, our relationship felt very comfortable, and we eventually started thinking about marriage. However, one day when I was 27, I had been offered a transfer to the Germany branch from the upper management. It was a decision left up to me, given it was an overseas transfer, but my mind was already made up. It's the chance I've always wanted. I want to go to Germany. This company had overseas branches before I joined, and despite its headquarters being in the US, the experience at the economically central Germany branch was something everyone aspired to. Of course, not everyone who wished could go. Only a select few recognized by the upper management were offered such opportunities. I never assumed I'd be chosen, but I worked my hardest towards that goal. I was overjoyed that my efforts seemed to have paid off. That's why I think I was too carried away at the time. I was so focused on my own happiness that I failed to consider the feelings of the most important person to me. After work that day, I called Jane, who was my girlfriend at the time. Back then, I used to call her by her first name, Jane, to our usual pub we frequented, even before we started dating. I was completely elated. I drank eagerly, exploding with joy to Jane. And so, I was so happy, I answered on the spot. Probably heading to Germany in 2 months. I'm just so excited. I wonder if my German will be good enough. Jane didn't change her expression at all, while I talked excitedly. It's hard to describe. Not joy, anger, sorrow, or pleasure, but more like she was completely stunned. I had never doubted that what made me happy would also make Jane happy, so I couldn't understand why she had such an expression. Maybe she's just shocked because it's so sudden. That was all I thought, still not considering anything but myself, happily talking about life in Germany. And the reason I wasn't nervous about my first move abroad was that I had assumed Jane will go to Germany with me. Since we were already thinking about marriage, it was natural for me to imagine such a plan in my head, never considering a scenario where we'd be apart. But at that moment, I forgot something simple, to put feelings. However, what stopped my buoyant chatter was Jane's voice, tinged with anger.
How can you say that with a smile?
I never imagined I'd be reprimanded, and seeing Jane's face shocked me. Even more because tears were overflowing from her eyes. What do you mean? Before I could finish my bewildered question, Jane continued with an even stronger tone.
What do you think of me? Going to Germany. Why are you so happy to say that? You've only thought about yourself. You didn't care about me at all, did you? I was a fool to trust you. Just go by yourself if you like. Goodbye.
Just after saying that, she roughly placed money on the table and left the restaurant. Of course, I chased after her, but I lost sight of her while paying the bill, and she didn't respond to any calls or visits to her house. We still saw each other at work, but couldn't discuss anything personal, and any attempt I made to speak to her outside of work-related matters was ignored. My messages didn't even get read, so I was probably blocked. Honestly, I didn't understand why Jane was so angry. But one thing I understood from her was that she felt terribly hurt because I had only thought of myself. I wanted you to come to Germany with me. I never said, leading to the misunderstanding that I wanted to break up and leave the US alone, or maybe she was angry. I decided to move without consulting her. I was wrong to assume that dating meant we would get married or move to Germany together. But even though I wanted to apologize, I was told to never talk to me again. I realized the trust I had lost could not be regained. We ended up separating in a situation where it wasn't clear who dumped whom. So, it makes sense that she would be cold to me after returning to the US 3 years later. Moreover, she seems to still be single, and while she is serious and competent at her work, her relationship with colleagues seems poor, with rumors saying she gave up on being a woman to live for her work, and acts high and mighty because she can do her job. The Jane I knew was kind, hard-working, bright, and not the type to be disliked by colleagues. Maybe she became reckless because of what happened between us. I know it sounds self-centered, but I couldn't help feeling responsible. So, no matter how coldly she treated me or how unreasonable the work she assigned was, I never complained. Jane would assign an impossible amount of work as if to spite me or insult and mock me.
You couldn't even handle that much. What were you doing in Germany? Just playing around for 3 years. How lucky you are. How does it feel to be subordinate to your former peer? Being sent back to the US after 3 years shows just how useless you were.
Such words became a daily occurrence, and it seemed she wanted to label me as the guy who can't do his job. Her task assignments were clearly meant to harass, but I was not just playing around in Germany. I was confident I could do satisfactory work if I seriously faced it. If she wanted to see me as the guy who can't do his job, then I was willing to be seen that way. Right or wrong, I didn't see any other way to atone. But my feelings were unknown to Jane or any other colleagues. I, myself, became the subject of bad rumors. He worked in Germany branch, but can't do his job at all. To think such a useless guy could go to Germany, what a letdown. It's not surprising. This is how I started to feel out of place at the headquarters in the US. Remembering the time spent with my colleagues in Germany makes my current situation feel truly painful. But it's my fault Jane isn't happy. It might be self-centered, but seeing her now makes me feel that way. And yet, I don't deserve to live happily and smile. At some point, that's how I started to feel. Then, one day,
Oh, Jackson.
Walking down the hallway after a break, I heard a familiar voice. Johnson. There stood Johnson, my direct boss before I went to Germany 3 years ago. He was a department head at the time, but had since been promoted and was now an executive. We hadn't had a chance to interact directly since my return, and this was the first time I had seen him.
I heard you'd come back, but I'm glad we finally met. How are you doing?
Johnson was one of the people I respected the most, having been very kind to me since I joined the company. I had always wanted to meet him, and I was very happy, but I couldn't exactly say I was doing well. I didn't want to complain during our first meeting in a long time, nor did I want to lie. Caught in my hesitation, Johnson cheerfully suggested,
Tomorrow's Friday. How about we catch up over dinner?
Really, I'd love to. Please, let's do it. For the first time since returning to the US, I felt like I had something to look forward to. After work the next day, I went out to drink with Johnson. Coincidentally, we ended up at the same place where Jane and I had parted ways 3 years ago. We talked mostly about time in Germany, which brightened my spirits and reminded me of happier times. He also shared news of his child being born during the last 3 years, and time flew by as we caught up. When our conversation dwindled, Johnson grew serious.
Even though I couldn't see your face, rumors reach me since we're in the same company. What happened to you? This isn't like you, especially between you and Jane. What exactly happened?
He might have invited me out because he sensed something was wrong. Feeling it rude to dodge the question, I decided to tell him everything. Since I had even kept my relationship with Jane a secret from Johnson, I expected him to be surprised. But
how many years do you think I've been your boss? I knew you two were dating all along.
His words caught me off guard. However, he seemed unaware of our breakup and was shocked by the current state of our relationship, given how close we were as colleagues and lovers. But all this is my fault. She is not to blame. I only thought about myself and ended up changing her life. It's only natural she resents me. The seeds I sowed mean I can only accept whatever comes my way as atonement. After hearing my story, Johnson said,
Do you really think that's what's best for both of you?
What? His unexpected question left me at a loss for words. He continued,
Do you truly believe that's the best you can do? By atoning this way, do you think it's right to keep her painted as a bad woman? To me, it looks like you're afraid of rejection and are running away from facing the issue.
I was taken aback. I had been so sure that this was the only way to atone, but I hadn't considered if there were other things I should do instead.
There are rumors in the company, and there's talk of reassessing Jane's position as a manager. If you continue like this, you'll waste your 3 years in Germany. Your actions now are leading to mutual destruction with her. Think seriously about what you should really do, what can truly make her happy. Face the problem. Don't run from it.
He was right. I've been helped by Johnson countless times since I was a new graduate, but it seems I'm utterly hopeless when it comes to Jane. I felt deeply ashamed. Johnson, thank you. I was wrong. I won't run away anymore. When I said that, Johnson sighed and then smiled.
That's more like it, Jackson. You have the attitude to face your mistakes, and that's what I like about you. Now, face Jane properly.
His words further motivated me. Then, on the next workday, 2 hours before leaving, Jane came to my desk.
Finish summarizing this within 2 hours before the end of the day. If you can't handle this, you know what will happen, right? If I report your work performance in the next internal review, you're probably getting fired. Or maybe, at best, you'll be sent to some backwater.
Saying that, she dumped a file full of transaction documents with associated companies onto my desk. Normally, summarizing this amount of documents wouldn't be possible in 2 hours, but she coldly smirked and issued the challenge. But I was done with such fruitless exchanges. Understood. Just a moment. There. Done.
What?
Usually, even if I had already finished the work Shane requested, I would submit it right at the deadline or slightly later, using the spare time to organize documents or help colleagues, making the work environment more manageable. I had been pretending to be inefficient in front of Jane, but no more running away. I thought these documents might need organizing someday, so I prepped them in advance. I think it should be fine. I've just sent the compiled data to the shared file, so please check it.
What? What did you do on your own?
I've summarized the requested range and also listed information on rival companies' associated businesses.
What?
Jane was visibly surprised by the unexpected turn.
You must be messing around. Don't underestimate me.
Initially, that's what she said, but after returning to her desk and briefly checking, she didn't find fault with the work. However, after everyone started leaving at the end of the day, she called me into a meeting room saying, "Jackson, a moment."
What's the meaning of earlier? Was that some kind of jab at me? I don't know when you prepared such documents, but if you can actually do it, why not always work seriously? You've been mocking me all this time, haven't you?
Her face flushed with anger. She seemed to have tears in her eyes. My heart ached because I realized she had been suffering all this time. I'm sorry for not facing you properly. I never truly considered your feelings, always focusing on myself. Ever since we parted ways before I went to Germany, I've been filled with regret. She seemed surprised to hear such a confession out of the blue, then quickly turned her face away.
What are you trying to do bringing this up now? Can we not talk about this anymore?
It was indeed too late. Why didn't I try everything in my power to face this sooner? My lack of action tormented me. When my transfer to Germany was decided, I was just overjoyed. I had always dreamed of this, and it becoming a reality made me so happy. But I never achieved that dream because, in reality, my dream was to go to Germany with you.
What?
Jane looked at me, her eyes wide with shock. I'm sorry. I was an idiot. I just assumed you'd come to Germany with me because we were dating, without considering it was a huge decision for you. It was a decision that required a significant commitment from you. Yet, I never expressed it in words hurt you, and was too afraid of getting hurt myself to share my feelings. I should have had a proper discussion with you. I was scared of rejection and just went to Germany, and after returning to the US, I've avoided facing you and the reality to the fullest. I tried to be what you wanted, thinking that by doing so, I was atoning for my sins. It's foolish. That wouldn't make you happy. What I really should have done was to face you and listen to your feelings. Throughout my confession, Jane kept her gaze averted, quietly sobbing. Is she crying? Jane. As I tried to get a closer look, she turned away from me and she said in a tearful voice, "Why bring this up now?" I thought, that's why it's been so hard to even look at you. She must have been suffering more from pushing me away. Knowing her kind nature, I realized she must have loathed herself for treating others harshly over these 3 years.
If you had just said, "Let's go to Germany together," none of this would have happened, idiot.
That sentence held everything. Her cold demeanor and work-first attitude were just ways to distract herself from her pain. I should have faced this sooner. No matter how much I think about it, I can't go back in time, but there are countless things I can do now. Despite various emotions interfering, I voiced my thoughts candidly. I might not be in the position to say this, pretending not to notice, and maybe I won't be forgiven, but I'm truly sorry. I'll be honest with you. I love you. Whether it was going to Germany or anywhere else, I couldn't forget about you. I don't care how much you scold me. If you hate me, that's okay. If you don't want to see my face, I'll leave the company and disappear from your life. I just want you to be happy. You deserve happiness. Your happiness is my happiness. That's right. Even if I made new friends in Germany or received affection from wonderful women, my heart never changed. I couldn't imagine a future without Jane by my side. Saying this now might make me look foolish. No, I'm definitely going to be scorned. But if by some miracle we could start over together, I wouldn't make the same mistake. And Jane's response was,
After all the horrible things I did to you out of spite, why would you say that to me? I never really forgot about you either.
Then, both of us cried more than any adult should, talking about everything that had gone wrong between us. It might be difficult to return to how we were 3 years ago, but this time, I don't want to make any mistakes. I want to gradually regain the trust of our colleagues and make up for the 3 years we were apart by making her smile, by making her happy. And someday, I'd like to go to Germany together and introduce her to Michael,